Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. This is Crime Time with Connie and I am obviously Connie. I have my cup of joe, so that means I am good to go. Anyways, if you are new here, every week I sit down and talk about a true crime case, except for the last 2 weeks because my husband had to go out of the state for his job and my daughter started school. So my mind was a little bit somewhere else. Today we are going to talk about two of my interests, obviously movies and true crime. So I was watching a movie like I normally do. This movie said it was based on a true story. Now, I'm not always naive to believe that movies always show what happens scene by scene truthfully. But they got me. This movie got me. I believed it was 100% true. I Googled, and it turns out it's completely false. The filmmakers got us. They got me good. But they did this on purpose, because in the beginning of the film, they put a disclaimer about how it's so true. They did this so us watchers, us viewers, would watch the whole thing. I'm going to read the disclaimer to prove to you why I thought it was true. So, in the beginning of the film, first thing you see, bam bam, it reads, quote, "This is a true story. The events depicted in this film took place in Minnesota in 1987. At the request of the survivors, the names have been changed. Out of respect for the dead, the rest have been told exactly as it occurred." End quote. Yeah, so my dumbass believed them. Anyways, it's not 100% not true. There is a murder case, a real life murder case, that the Coen brothers, the directors of this film, got inspiration from. It even was featured on the very first episode of Forensic Files. That is what we are going to be talking about today, is what inspired the film Fargo. Now, for those of you who have not seen Fargo, I'm going to give a little rundown about the movie. I won't give too much away. There will be some spoilers, but in 1996, the cult classic film Fargo was released. It went on to win Best Leading Actress and Best Original Screenplay. It even has a score of 94 on Rotten Tomatoes. So the movie is about a man named Jerry who is portrayed by William H. Macy. We all mostly know him as the father in Shameless. I mean, he's done other great stuff, but he is the man behind the plan. So he has hired two men, who are the antagonists in this film, to kidnap his wife for ransom and essentially extortion money. His bright idea was to have his wife kidnapped so her father could pay the ransom money, because her father is very wealthy. He owns the car dealership Jerry works at, and Jerry is going to use the ransom money to pay off his debt. Yep, because he made a bad business deal. And he's going to pay the men each, I think it's roughly $40,000 each, and give them a new car. Well, the two hired men kidnap the wife. On the way back to their cabin to hide out, they are pulled over by a state trooper. Now, the wife is in the back seat. She's terrified. She has no idea what's going on. She is kidnapped, but she has no idea her husband planned this. She's not quiet, but she's terrified. She's making noises, and she's covered by a blanket or a coat. Now, Carl, who is played by Steve Buscemi? I know I'm saying that wrong. Anyways, he tries to bribe the cop with money. It doesn't work out. The other guy thinks the best way to solve the situation so they don't get caught is to shoot the state trooper. Now they have a dead man that was not in the plan. There is obviously more twists and turns that go on, more murders, more victims, but I don't want to give too much away. So the cop to investigate what happened to the state trooper and other victims is played by Frances McDormand. She is amazing in this. She plays a very smart cop, very pregnant, and she has a darn tootin' accent, she did very good. Obviously she did good. She won the Oscar for this. Fast forward to the ending. While she's investigating, she's driving and she sees the car she's looking for parked in front of a cabin. So she gets out of her patrol car to investigate. She's stomping in feet upon feet of snow. It's like a white dream. You know what I'm saying? There is snow everywhere. She goes to investigate because she hears noises, loud noises, like a drill coming from the back of the cabin. Passes a few trees, and that's where she sees someone shoving a body down a wood chipper, turning the bright white snow into bright red. Now that is sadly based on a true story. What inspired the Coen brothers to roughly make a film about it, pretty much just use the idea of a wood chipper in their film. And that is the murder of a woman named Helle Crafts. Helle Crafts was born Helle Nielsen on July 7th, 1947 in Denmark. She was an only child and was described as very outgoing and vibrant. She had a happy demeanor and loved learning. In fact, she learned to speak different languages quickly. She learned French, English, and she understood German. Helle would attend college in England, and all the languages she learned would come in handy because she became a stewardess with Capital Airways. Later on, she would apply for a job for the Copenhagen area. She was 8 out of 200 applicants selected for the job. This means she would have to travel to Miami for the training courses. While there, she stayed in a motel with other pilots and stewardess. On May 24th, 1969, she met a man that would change her life forever. And this man was Richard Crafts. Richard Crafts was born on December 20th, 1937 in New York City. He was one of 3 children, having 2 older sisters. His father was a World War I veteran pilot and a college football player. Richard would go on and step into his father's footsteps by joining the Marines in 1956. He would become a pilot and would fly for Air America, a branch of the CIA. By 1966, he was out of the military and had trouble finding a job until 1968 when he found a pilot's job for an airline. Richard at this time was described as a ladies' man. He always had a woman by his side. In fact, when he met Helle, he was engaged. It was reported that Helle did not mind because her and Richard weren't so serious. They dated on and off, but I also saw one report that it did bother her, so I'm not sure. They soon would become married after 6 years of dating because Helle would become pregnant with their first child. So the two ended up married in 1965, and they would move to Newtown, Connecticut and settle there. She would end up having 3 kids total with her husband, Richard. Newtown was described as a low crime rate area, as a place you want to raise your children. It was said that Richard had a fascination with guns. He collected them. He even built a space for his collection in the home. This put a strain on their relationship because he would spend most of his time cleaning, polishing, rearranging his collection. Sadly, the marriage was not picture perfect. I mean, you have a stewardess married to a pilot. It's like a Hallmark dream. But in most cases, marriages are not perfect. There's something behind closed doors. Helle would go out in public with bruises on her face. She even confided into her friend that her husband would leave for days and not tell her where he was or why he left. She even told her friends that She didn't like the way Richard treated her during pregnancy, that he treated her very poorly. I don't know how he treated her during pregnancy, but if she said it was poorly and she's speaking out about it, it was probably very bad. And that just breaks my heart because being pregnant, you're so vulnerable. Just so many things going on. And when your husband, your support, is treating you poorly, it's a lot. And it makes you honestly rethink about your husband. I'm assuming my husband treated me like a goddess. In 1986, Richard would get a part-time job as a police officer. Many found this odd because he made good money being a pilot and he didn't really need to be a part-time officer. He had actually been an auxiliary officer since 1982. In the summer of 1986, the same year he officially started working as a part-time police officer, Helle would obtain a divorce lawyer and a private investigator. You see, Richard obviously favored more than one woman in his life, and Helle was aware of that. Now, in order to prove it, when she went to go file for divorce, she hired the private investigators to take some pictures, and he did. He obtained them. He caught Richard kissing another woman, but not just any woman. She was a flight attendant. Now that's just wrong. You know, she's your wife, is a stewardess, you're a pilot, and you cheat on her with a fellow flight attendant. That's just messed up. So this was just enough for Helle. She was fed up with his anger, because apparently he had an anger issue, cheating, him not communicating well with her. So she was done. She wanted a divorce. Later that year, on December 1st, 1986, the private investigator she hired, his name was Keith Mayo, he reported Helle missing. Keith feared that Richard had something to do with it also. Now, the police at the time didn't believe that Helle was in any danger, and it seemed like they were hesitant to investigate because Richard was a part-time officer. They believed she left over marital problems and just wanted to go clear her head, but they would investigate, and they interviewed Helle's friends, and they all said that Helle would not leave her children and that she was trying to file for divorce from Richard. After learning about this, the police changed their tune. So they went on to go talk to Richard, and his story changed a lot. They found out that he told friends that she was helping her sick mom in Denmark. He told someone else he didn't know what happened to Helle. So why are there so many different stories? It didn't add up for investigators. A friend of Helle's actually was just so fed up. She wanted to know what happened to her friend, and she obtained Helle's mom's phone number, who lived in Denmark, called the mom, and she asked, "Hey, is your daughter there?" And Helle's mom was confused. She's like, "No. First off, I'm not sick, and my daughter's not here. I'm not supposed to expect her until April." So that's when fear sunk in for everybody. A friend who talked to Helle's mother came forward with that information to the police, and she also had something else to say. She said that her friend Helle told her back in November that, quote, "If anything happens to me, don't assume it was an accident," end quote. It seemed like Helle was in fear of her husband. The investigators would talk to the nanny to get more information. Now, this woman I saw was described as the nanny, but also as the maid. So I'm going to refer her as the nanny because she also helped take care of the children. They wanted to know when's the last time she saw Helle. The nanny said that on November 19th, Richard had woken her up at 6 a.m. to inform her that Helle was driving to his sister's house in West Point. They had to meet her there with the kids. The nanny found this odd because Newtown had been hit with a massive snowstorm, but their home had no power because of the storm, so she was like, okay. So off they went to Richard's house, and when they got there, Helle was not there, and Richard left immediately after dropping his family and the nanny off. She said that Richard did not return until about 7 p.m. that night. When she asked where Helle was, he said he didn't know, but then he said that his wife went to Denmark. The nanny states that in the master bedroom, a piece of carpet had a stain on it. And when she asked Richard about it, he said that he spilled kerosene on it. She told the police this, obviously, that there was a carpet stain, and they found this suspicious also. So they requested that Richard take a polygraph test, and he passed it. Now, we all know that polygraphs are not admissible in court. You shouldn't really even take one. I don't think I could ever take a polygraph test because my anxiety is through the roof, and I'm afraid it's going to say I'm lying about everything. The police officers were like, oh shit, he passed. But there was obviously more questions than answers. The police wanted him to come back for another interview. He agreed. He came back, and on December 11th, Richard came back for another round of questions. In the interview, they asked him if he knew that his wife had hired a private investigator. He replied that he had not. They also asked him if he knew that the PI found pictures of him kissing a New Jersey woman, and he's like, I did not. I did not know my wife had pictures of me kissing another woman. The investigators wanted more answers about the carpet, so they asked what he had done with the rug after he cut it up. Richard replied that he dumped it in the Newtown landfill 1 week ago. He also states that the rug was blue. Now, this is huge for investigators. It's also frustrating because when anything goes to the landfill, it's like a needle in a haystack. It's going to be very hard to find this carpet, this rug. The private investigator that Helle hired with other help decided to search the landfill for this cut-up piece. And after hours, they actually found it. Now, sadly, the rug was tested for blood, and it tested negative. So this meant that investigators needed to dig deeper. They began to look into Richard's credit card history. They found that he had purchased a freezer, bed sheets, and a comforter. His history also showed that he rented a piece of machinery for a large amount. I think it was about $900. This item would be later identified as a wood chipper. Do you see the connection? On Christmas Day, later that month, the investigators obtained a search warrant for Richard's home. They were lucky to find out that Richard was not home, that he had taken the kids to Florida for the holidays. Now, obviously, if a search warrant is for your house, you should be there. This is the 80s. Still, investigators executed the search warrant. They found a freezer, but there was no body inside. No body inside. There was no body inside of it. This was an old freezer. It was not the new one he had purchased. They obtained over 100 items into evidence. This includes towels that tested positive for O-positive blood, which is the same blood type that Helle had. On December 30th, the investigators talked to a man who had some information. This man was named Joseph Hines, and he came forward to say that when the snowstorm hit, he had been plowing snow when he saw in the middle of the night a U-Haul with a wood chipper attached to it, and this was near Lake Zor. Now, investigators were able to go to this location, and they found evidence. This includes blonde hair, bone fragments, fabrics, paper, and wood chips. They searched the lake. They searched in the lake, and they found a chainsaw that had hair embedded into the chain. In total, they found over 2,000 strands of blonde hair, human bone, teeth, fingers, toenail, and a fingernail. This all linked DNA to Helle Crafts. Now, this chainsaw had a serial number on it that was scratched off, but they were able to do their detective work, and they found out that this was Richard's chainsaw. Richard Crafts would be arrested for the murder of his wife. His trial was moved to New London, Connecticut due to publicity. After 53 days, a mistrial was declared. The second trial was held in Norwalk, Connecticut on September 7th, 1989. On November 21st, almost 3 years to the day that Helle was murdered, he was found guilty of her murder. It was believed Richard murdered Helle in their bedroom, froze her body, used the chainsaw to dismember her, put her body in the wood chipper to dispose of her body. The motive, they believed, was over the divorce. He felt like he would lose. He was sentenced to 50 years in prison. This was the first murder conviction in Connecticut in which a body was not fully recovered. Helle's murder would be known as the wood chipper murder. Sadly, Richard is out of prison. In fact, out of the 50-year sentence, he only served 30. Last I read about him, he was going to a veteran homeless shelter. But that is the sad case of Helle Crafts. Obviously, you can make the connection to the movie Fargo. In the special edition of the DVD, the Coen brothers confirmed that this case was inspiration for their film. There was another case that has been rumored to inspire the movie, but they denied that case, so I did not include it into this. Now, the wood chipper used in the movie Fargo is on display at the Fargo Moorhead Visitor Center in Fargo, North Dakota. Yes, Fargo is in North Dakota. It is not in Minnesota. They named the movie Fargo because it sounds better than the town in Minnesota where it took place. Because in the beginning of the film, they were in Fargo, but they traveled. And yeah, that was what inspired the filmmakers. Now, Fargo has been remade into a TV series. I have not watched it yet. That is it for today. If you guys haven't already, please subscribe. I also have an Instagram page if you guys want to ask me questions. I would love to do a Q&A video soon. So if you have any requests for any cases, please go to my Instagram page and let me know what you guys want to hear next. Or soon I would like to do a Q&A about me if you guys have any questions, if you want to know more about me. But that is it for today. I hope to see you guys soon. Stay safe and stay golden.